In selecting a proper hoop for any given project, you want to select a hoop that's appropriately sized for the design. In the design that we just set up, we saw that the design is slightly over an inch tall by about 3.5, almost 4 inches wide. So we'll pick the 15 centimeter round hoop because it's about 5 inches wide, 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches, so it safely contains the area of the design with a little bit of extra room. Let's now hoop our project. What's needed are the garment or the item itself, supported on a flat level surface. Also, you'll need the appropriate stabilizer. In this case, we have a denim shirt, so a simple cutaway stabilizer will be fine. The stabilizer is sewn underneath the garment, trapped in a sandwich between the upper inner ring, the garment itself, and then underneath the stabilizer, and finally the bottom ring. The stabilizer also needs to be cut large enough to fit not just the circumference of the hoop, but also with a little bit of extra. You can see 3/4 inch to about an inch on all sides. Also, before hooping, make sure you know how to orient the hoop itself. The hoop itself has 2 round holes on the corners of the bracket that should go towards you. The other side of the bracket, the back side, which faces towards the machine, has a U-shaped cutout on the right. So if we were going to hoop this and attach this to the machine for sewing so that the neck is towards the machine and the bottom of this shirt is towards you, then these round holes should be on this side and not this way. So that orientation is very, very important. Next, with the conventional hoops, you'll have an adjustment screw to adjust the hoop for different kinds of fabrics. It'll take a little bit of guesswork. Adjust the screw to have the appropriate amount of room for the thickness of this garment. So in this case, we'll want it to open up quite a bit to allow for the thickness of the denim. Next, you'll want to determine the correct placement, for which there are other procedures that you can do and use different kinds of placement guides. In this case, we have a pocket, and typically the bottom of the logo, something like this, should be roughly 1 to 1.5 inches above the seam of the pocket. So going by that guideline, we'll go ahead and take the stabilizer, stack it on top of the outer ring, open up the shirt a little bit, break any static cling between the front of the shirt and the back, slide the stabilizer and the ring together. Don't let go so that they stay together until you've positioned that hoop approximately where it needs to be. You can tell the position by holding with your fingers, so you can see this is a little off to the right, and keeping both the stabilizer and the outer ring together until we're about 90% correct on the placement. Next, we'll take the bracket / inner ring on top, and you can actually feel more exactly where it is. So you can see from this that we're pretty close, and we just need a little bit of adjustment, in which case, because we have a little excess backing on the sides, we can actually just push it a small amount in whatever direction we need to until this is lined up where it needs to be. Finally, before pressing the hoop together, do one last check of the alignment. Also be sure that the horizontal lines of the hoop are aligned with the horizontal of the garment itself. So in this case, the line going across the shoulder should be parallel to the line of this hoop. That helps you make sure that, especially on something like the text logo that we have, that this sews nice and parallel. Even better for alignment with a pocket, we have a seam, and just make sure that the horizontal lines of the hoop are lined up and parallel with that seam for proper alignment. Also, make sure that there are no wrinkles in the garment. You don't need to stretch the garment, but make sure that that material that's encircled by the hoop is nice and flat, or as flat as you reasonably can get it. Go ahead and press the inner ring into the outer ring all the way down, and make sure you feel a little bit of resistance, which means that it'll hold. There should be enough grip with the outer ring on the inner ring that it's not going to come loose as the machine sews. Also feel, before continuing, to make sure that the outer ring is now flush with the bottom of the inner ring. So you want to push the hoop together at least that far on all sections of the hoop. This is now ready for sewing. To mount the garment onto the machine, slide the neck or the opening of the item around the end of the sewing arm to ensure that the back of the garment is below the sewing arm so that the machine doesn't sew into that and only sews through the front. So we'll slide that in. As the opening of the garment, in this case the neck, slides over the rotary hook arm, will now align the brackets of the hoop with the ends of the arms of the machine. Also make note of the positioning pins here, which are these two round screw heads at the end of each arm. These screw heads or positioning pins have to snap into the hole on these front corners to hold the hoop and the garment firmly in position while the machine sews. So we'll continue pushing forward, sliding the front of the bracket underneath the clips all the way forward until those positioning pins snap through these holes, which assures that the machine is now holding the hoop and the garment firmly and precisely onto the machine. Finally, one last step before sewing is that we'll want to trace. You can have a trace button here in your shortcuts, or in your positioning screen, press trace and then press the play button, and what will happen is that you'll see the cursor move to show you where it is pointing to the edges of the design. And you'll also see that here with the machine, either needle 1 or your presser foot or a laser pointer will show you where the edges of the design fall. And you want to make sure that as the machine traces, that your pointer does not cross over the edge of the hoop. And you can see that's good to go. Escape back out to the main screen, press start, and the machine will sew the design. As you're sewing the design, you can set the speed by pressing this button here, which allows you to adjust the speed on the fly from the maximum speed all the way down to a minimum speed. If you're a new operator, it's a good idea to set a nice conservative speed that's somewhere in the middle. Don't go too fast, no need to go too slow if you followed your procedures very carefully. Notice that the machine, when it's done with the color, should stop, cut the thread, and then move to the next section.